Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. On the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart this week, number 2 in the U.S., number 29 in Canada, number 22 in Germany, number 42 in Hong Kong, and 61 in South Korea. Past guests and episodes are online at celebrityjobber.com. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, youtube.com/the @celebrityjobber, and streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, would love a 5-star rating, and leave a review. So what happens? These celebrities, they don't become famous. What would they be doing? Was there ever a backup plan? What was their first job, their big break? Sometimes this stuff comes out of the blue. Sometimes these people are just born to be a star. That could be the case with today's guest. I mean, almost 70 years in Hollywood? Come on, you gotta be kidding. A ton of credits like A Very Brady Sequel, Black Sheep, Fletch, and of course, leaving his mark on pop culture as one of the leads in National Lampoon's Animal House. That's right, John Belushi was the star, but the role of Eric Otter Stratton, played by Tim Matheson, he was definitely a star of that movie for sure. How did this all happen? What did his parents do? And of course, we'll discuss Tim's new book, Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches. He played the role of Eric Otter Stratton in National Lampoon's Animal House. I'm talking about the one and only Tim Matheson, who just so happens to be my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Tim.
Hey, Zito.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing so great. It's great to hear your voice, and I'm sure a lot of people, when talking to you, say that. They go back in time. It's pretty amazing that I see 70 years in Hollywood. I mean, is that right? 7 decades?
7 decades. I rounded up. It was actually 6.5, but who's counting?
Unbelievable. I had no idea that, for lack of a better term, you were a child actor. I mean, you were in Leave It to Beaver.
No, yeah. I was like, I call it the third kid through the door. And I was fortunate enough not to be the number 1 actor on the show. I wasn't Jerry Mathers playing Beaver. I wasn't even number 2, his buddy, Larry. I was the number 3. I was the third kid through the door. Like, hey, Beav, yeah, you're right, Beav. But I was fortunate because sometimes that transition from being a kid actor to, a young adult actor was often the end of a career for many of these kids. So,
yes.
And they don't have the emotional, mechanics to handle that kind of thing. And that's why some of them just, went off the deep end, and it was tough.
So tell me about how you got into the business, because growing up, it seemed like your mom and dad were regular people growing up in California. What did your parents do for work?
My dad had a liquor store. My mom was a homemaker, and she actually was a secretary. She worked for AT&T for a while, and then my parents split up when I was about 6 and 7, and which was devastating to me. And I used to go hide out in the movies and just sort of seek refuge in the movies on the weekends and watch movies over and over and over, because I like the security of knowing that it was going to end happily and it was going to be the same scene over and over again.
Oh, wow.
Whereas my home life was chaos, So that's why I wanted to get in the movies, because I thought, that looks like a nice place to live. I'd like to be in there.
But Tim, at such a young age, you're talking about going through such a traumatic thing at that age. Mom and dad had regular jobs. I mean, how did you get into show business? Was this coming from you? Mom, Dad, I want to be in movies. I want to be in commercials. How did it all start? What was the first gig?
I was pushing. I was always pushing. And my mom worked with a company that she was a secretary for. And I think her boss had a son that I went to school with who was my age, and he had an agent, and he'd go up for these parts, and she'd tell me about it. I said, well, tell that agent, send me out, maybe I could. So through that agent, my mom actually helped me do that. But I wanted to be an actor. I was doing plays, and I wanted to and we were also not, we didn't have a lot of money. We were, struggling. My mom was struggling. So I wanted to help out at home and make money. I was always working anyway. I was keeping score at bowling alleys and had a newspaper route and stuff. So I was always trying to bring money home. And it turned out to be a better way to do it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
You're trying to bring money home at such a young age. What was your very first job outside of, or maybe it was in show business, but what do you remember your very first paycheck or your very first time earning money? What job was it?
It was a show. I got a one scene part in a show called Window on Main Street that starred Robert Young, who had just finished Father Knows Best, which was an old TV show.
Yeah, you're kidding.
And so I got one scene part, and I got paid $100. And I'll never forget getting that check and running down to the bank. They mailed it in those days, right?
Right.
And running down to the bank, cashing it, and bringing home probably, I don't know, like $85, whatever it is after taxes. And then taking the cash and throwing it up going to my room and throwing it up in the air. And just thinking like, oh my God, my dreams have come true and we're rich. Little did I realize that $100, even then didn't go, that far. But
but Tim, I kind of think you may have, we might have to check, the records here, but I think you may have invented, quote, making it rain. Oh man, that's great. So that was your first paying job. What about outside of the business? Can you think of any early jobs that you had?
There were two jobs that I had. I had a paper route, and I used to keep score at the bowling alleys before they had the automated scorekeeping. And so I would go to league night and keep score for two teams that were playing each other. There was 10 different bowlers, and I was a bowler, so I knew how to keep score. And I could make I could make like $10 or $15 with tips and everything on an evening for like 4 or 5 hours. And that's a lot of money. Now that would be like $60, $80.
Right.
So, it was a lot of money for a 15, 16-year-old kid. I'd ride my bike over to the bowling alley. So I did that. I worked at Colonel Sanders for a minute, and I worked in a beach club where I was a hamburger guy down at the beach, and I was doing that. But always quit those jobs to go act.
Right.
And I think I was fortunate enough once I got out of high school, I just never stopped acting.
So maybe the job, Tim, at the beach club, did that possibly give you what you were looking for to maybe become one of the coolest men in college? Eric Otter Stratton, did that gig at the beach club help you really, harness that role?
I wish it had. I got to tell you, I was terrible. I was not Eric Otter Stratton when I was growing up. There was an occasional once or twice, but I was in high school. I was short. I had a girl named Janelle Penny tell me, "Oh, and she was the cutest girl in school. I'd go out with you if you were 6 feet tall." But I wasn't. And so I did ask her out finally when I was in college when I was 6 feet tall, but. I wasn't that cool. I had moments, but what was cool was that script in Animal House. And I knew that character. I knew people like that character. And I just relied on those memories and that part of myself to play that character. And then everybody thought, oh, that's who he is, So it made life a little easier, I must say.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Tim, is it, I guess, fair to say that Animal House was your big break? Did life change for you after you became Eric Otter Stratton?
Yes. Because it was like my first comedy. It opened up a whole new world of possibilities to do feature motion pictures like Fletch and Up the Creek and To Be or Not to Be. All of a sudden I'm a a movie actor. And then I did Steven Spielberg's 1941. Now, to be honest, not all those movies work out very well. So if you're not in movies that make money at the box office, you transition back, you go to where the work is, and the work then was for me in television movies. So that's where I went.
Whenever I hear that an actor has written a book, it always, first of all, I'm very impressed, number one, because I think it seems like a tremendous amount of work. Damn glad to meet you, my 7 decades in the Hollywood trenches. Why? Was it just like so much? You're getting in your later years, and you want to compile a list of your achievements. You want some kind of legacy. Why do it, and how tough is it?
I wanted to put down, I had a good fortune to do a lot of different jobs that connected me to people that were so iconic and so talented that I didn't want those lessons to be lost. And these were people who worked in vaudeville, like Bob Hope and Gleason, and Jackie Gleason, and Lucille Ball, and Debbie Reynolds, and Dick Van Dyke. And they had a skill set and a skill level of comedic talent that was amazing. And I wanted to pass those experiences on to young actors, or just performers or writers, or just people in any job, with the lessons that I was taught by Gleason and like Lucy this is a tough dog-eat-dog business. It's full contact entertainment, like so many other jobs, like every other job. And you're going to get knocked down. And you just got to learn how to get back up and then pivot. What are you going to do next? Now how are you going to handle this? You got knocked down. Now what? So those are the lessons I learned, and I think they apply to any job anybody does, because I think all careers, we go through the same phases of success and disappointment and getting fired. Who knows what's going to happen.
Tim, it's just funny that you say that, because it's very relatable. I was just with a friend last night who's in the liquor business. He talked to me about downsizing. I'm in the radio and broadcast business. We are downsizing. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the film business and how it's changed between the time you started and now? Yeah,
sure. I mean, Hollywood was the center of the entertainment universe when I was a kid. Now it's an international enterprise. Again, you make them in Hungary, in England, in Japan, and in Korea, and Hollywood. But I think the business is transforming with streaming services, and so it's becoming much more international. And Hollywood is downsizing in many ways too. A lot of work gets done in Atlanta or I shoot the series that I work on, Virgin River. We shoot in Vancouver, British Columbia, and so you go to where the incentives are and where the locations are, and everybody's trying to do it for less. So I think that, but it's a cyclical thing, and the talent, the actors and the technicians in Hollywood, writers and producers and directors are the best, as good as anywhere in the world. And so hopefully Hollywood remains this, near the center of this enterprise.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Tim, can you give me when the cameras weren't rolling during Animal House? You're working with guys like John Landis, Ivan Reitman, Harold Ramis.
Yeah, Harold Ramis. Doug Canny, John Belushi. Yeah.
I mean, you're working with these unbelievable movie makers that you didn't know were going to be unbelievable movie makers, and an unbelievable cast. When the camera wasn't rolling, is there one particular time that you can remember that sticks out in your mind, whether it was just something hilarious that happened? Can you give us a moment from shooting Animal House?
Well, just that we would keep the camera rolling because the studio wouldn't let John Landis, the director, print more than one take because film was expensive. We were shooting on film. And so if you did, if you do a shot like on me and they say, cut, okay, let's do it again. And then when you're done, you print takes 2, 3, and 4 because you want to get in the editing room and choose the best one of them. And so John Landis would never cut because the studio wouldn't let him print more than one take. So he would just say, "Don't do it again. Go back there and do it again. Only funnier and faster. Say this, punch this line." And so things like that, or just watching John Belushi, where they would turn the camera on and just let him improvise. And I remember one sequence in a toga party. I think he was pouring mustard all over himself, and it was like, oh my God, he was amazing to watch. I mean, he was just so supportive and a wonderful comedic actor.
I got to tell you, you've definitely left your impact on pop culture. As when I was in college, just so you know, Tim, they called me Pinto. Just so you know.
I love it. I love it, Zito.
The name of the book, Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches. Tim Matheson, he is definitely not a gynecologist in Beverly Hills, but he played the role of Eric Otter Stratton in National Lampoon's Animal House. And just damn glad to talk to you today, Tim, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Pinto.
What a great guy, Tim Matheson, Eric Otter Stratton in Animal House. Of course, that wasn't his only film credit. He's been in a ton of stuff. He was in a Very Brady sequel. He played Chris Farley's brother, Al Donnelly, in Black Sheep. He was in Fletch. I mean, he's been in a ton of stuff. And TV, 1 million credits, man. I told you, like Leave It to Beaver, My 3 Sons. And his first job was actually in show business. I mean, yeah, he had a paper route and he kept score at a bowling alley, but he had one scene in a show called Window on Main Street, starring Robert Young from the show Father Knows Best. And he talks about getting paid $100 for that one scene, going to the bank, cashing the check, and then immediately going into his room and throwing the money up in the air like all of his problems have now ended. He's rich. He's famous. He is a success. Really great story and a great visual. I found it incredibly sad, though, when Tim said the reason that he wanted to get into movies was because his folks split up when he was about 6 or 7 years old. His old man owned a liquor store. His mother was a secretary and a homemaker. And the divorce really screwed him up to where he found solace by going to the movies. And how at the end of the movies, it was a happy ending and it was just kind of a happy place for him. And that's why he wanted to be an actor. I thought that was kind of a sad story, you know? He talked about how he got an agent because his mother, who was a secretary, knew someone at work who had a kid who was an actor and had an agent. And that's kind of how it was in California when you lived near Hollywood. Some kids played baseball, some kids were in commercials and TV shows. So Tim got hooked up with the agent, and there you go. As they say, the rest is history. But the PhD that Tim got, landing one of the lead roles on National Lampoon's Animal House, of course, behind John Belushi, Tim Matheson plays the role of Eric Otter Stratton, the ladies' man, and, film director John Landis, written by Harold Ramis, produced by Ivan Reitman. I mean, all powerhouses in the film biz. I mean, they made that movie for only $3 million, which is equivalent to about $14 million in today's money. That film actually grossed $141 million, which is a little over $650 million in today's money. So you can see it was a huge hit. Changed his life. That was his big break. And his new memoir, Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches, Tim Matheson. Great guest this week on the Celebrity Jobber podcast. Number 2 this week in the U.S. on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. Number 22 in Germany, number 42 in Hong Kong. Did I mention number 29 in Canada? It's been a great week. Thank you so much for listening. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. You can check out all the past episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. You can follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. This guy wanted to be an actor when he was a child since his parents divorced. And he's been in the game for almost 70 years. It's pretty unbelievable. So thanks once again for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I got some great guests coming up, legendary celebrities. So don't forget to check us out again next week as we'll drop a fresh new episode each and every Friday. So until then, I'm Jeff Zito. Thank you so much for listening.